I haven't met you in person yet. I mean, I've met you in person, but I haven't met you before today or even yesterday. So Hamid, I was coordinating with Hamid back in London for us to have a guest speaker to tell their story in a way that it relates to the topics that we're discussing today. And he connected with Brother Musa, and from what I can tell, he's got a crazy story. And on his website, Motivated Muslim, I've read a couple of his articles, and he's got a lot to say. I feel like he's got a lot on his chest that he wants to give and he wants to share. He's also responsible for all the drinks that you have on the table here. He was the first one. He actually pulled up. He got in through the door before me and Hamid did. You know, I mean, we were across the street, but he came in first. You know, we were here first, but he was here first too. So you know, he's been on it, and I just want, just introduce yourself and tell us more about you, inshallah.
So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil mursaleen. Habibina Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. So we begin with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most gracious, the most merciful. All praise is due to Allah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send his salat and salam upon our Prophet and Messenger, Muhammad, as well as his family and companions together, and those who follow in their righteousness until the day of judgment. So, my name is Musa Abdul-Mateen, as the brother introduced me, and I'm just going to get straight to the point and tell you that I'm qualified to be here. I grew up in these streets, and I've matter of fact, just on this block right here, right up the street on Willow, me and my cousin, we used to run around before this light rail was here, and before they started gentrifying this street. And we used to put in a lot of work here and sell a lot of drugs and shoot a lot of people. And so the brothers that just lost their life in the streets, I was the shooter, and that's why I'm here today, because I just did a 20-year sentence for being the shooter. And so I'm definitely qualified to be here. But beyond that, there doesn't need to be a whole lot of discussion about that. That's not what's relevant. What's relevant is that I'm here to share with the youth, to provide the youth with some empowerment and some solutions. Because today what we did, first and foremost, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to thank Bilal and Abdul Hamid and everybody who is responsible for putting this thing together. Because what we're seeing right here is a historical experience in our community. Never have I seen in my lifetime, and I grew up in this city, so many talented people who are moving in the same direction at the same time. And here we are in this place, and there's many, many more who didn't make it because they're active. This is history, what we're seeing. And to answer the sister's question, which was a relevant question, about how are we going to bring about the village, that's what we're doing here today. I was a gang member from the streets of Seattle. And not much has changed for me, because I still have that tribal mentality. And I'm here to tell the youth, don't lose that tribal mentality. Don't let nobody take that away from you. As long as that is not drawing you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hang on to that. And we heard a lot of concerns, and we heard a lot of identifying of problems today. The solution is right here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَتَعَوَّنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. We have to have ta'awun. Allah says, and help one another in righteousness and piety. وَلَا تَعَوَّنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. And do not help one another in sin and transgression. We have to come together upon ta'awun and tanassul, mutual help and cooperation, because without those two elements, there can be no community. There can be no building. And so if we want to build, we have to come together as qualified people, like I have qualified myself to be on this stage. And we have to come and we have to be committed to cooperate. Because if we don't join together, like our brother Petty said, and stop being silos, then we're not going to stop nobody from getting smoked. And we're not going to stop nobody from here in this room for being the next shooter. We have to come together and cooperate with one another because we have the same missions, the same value systems. Whether you're a Muslim or a non-Muslim, if you're in this room today, it's likely that we have the same values and the same concerns. I want to talk a little bit about motivated Muslim. So, first and foremost, I want to read you a story, and then I'll take it from there. Let me see that. Use the brother's phone here. So this is an article that is written by the brother you can see up here on the screen. His name is Yusef Jihad, and I'm going to read Prophet Yusuf, Lessons for Incarcerated Muslims. This was written by my brother Yusef Jihad, who is currently at Monroe Correctional Facility. He's been locked up for almost 20 years, and he's got quite a bit more ways to go. And this is just a selection to read so you guys can understand who these brothers are. We talked about incarceration. I want you guys to understand who we're talking about. As motivated Muslims in prison, many of us are strengthened by the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam in the Quran. We feel a sense of connection to Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam because we find our own stories reflected in his story. It goes way beyond the obvious connection of his imprisonment. Like no other prophet in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals in detail the troubles of Prophet Yusuf's childhood, the trials and tribulations of his young adulthood, and finally his ultimate triumph in fullness of manhood. We make dua to Allah that we too are able to overcome the difficulties in our past and triumph in our future. Abuse of a prophet. Usually before a person comes to prison, something in their life has gone wrong. They have experienced some kind of trauma or most likely entered into a cycle of traumatic experiences that serve as a catalyst to antisocial behavior. More often than not, these cycles of traumatic experiences begin in childhood and are commonly referred to as adverse childhood experiences, or what has become called ACEs. In Ayah 8 of Surah Yusuf, Allah begins to give us a glimpse into the trauma of Yusuf alayhi salam that he experienced in his home life with his brothers. Imagine the internal strife Yusuf alayhi salam had to endure growing up with his older brothers, so filled with jealousy that it eventually consumes them and they begin to plot his death. Although our home life may not mirror Prophet Yusuf, and for those who are here that are not Muslims, you will identify this individual as Prophet Joseph. Although our home life may not mirror Prophet Yusuf's adverse childhood experience exactly, we can definitely connect with his story in that we too have gone through trauma at home. Some of us have been sexually abused. Still others of us have had to witness the physical or sexual abuse of our family members. Some of us were left alone to raise ourselves without guidance. Some of us experienced homelessness, hunger, going without proper clothing and medical care. Some of us have had to experience all of the above. Now in these cells, reflecting on the book of Allah, looking back on the tragedies of our childhood, our faith in Allah is strengthened from the fact that Allah is speaking to us. Like Yusuf alayhi salam, we too, with the help of Allah, can overcome the pain of our experiences in childhood. The connection to Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam for incarcerated Muslims does not end at childhood. It continues into young adulthood. As a young man, Prophet Yusuf had another very traumatic experience. In a place where he was supposed to be safe, Yusuf alayhi salam was betrayed by a household member. The wife of the Aziz is entrusted with his well-being, and instead of making his stay honorable, she attempts to take advantage of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, using her authority over him. Here Allah speaks to the issues of those in authority using their position of power to gain sexual favors. Again, we may not have gone through exactly what happened to Prophet Yusuf. However, many can relate to trusting someone with their well-being and experiencing a violation of that trust. It may be that we trusted someone to guide us right, and they may mislead us, taught us the wrong things in life. How many have been tempted, led astray, or betrayed by their own family or people thought to be like their family? The prison is filled with souls that have experienced that kind of emotional trauma. Among the prison population of incarcerated Muslims, we generally don't talk about ourselves in the terms of victims. For many of us, it is our victimization by those we have trusted in our lives that has a direct correlation to our inability to be vulnerable, to trust, and share with our brothers in ways that facilitate a truly in-depth support and nasiha, good advice necessary for spiritual growth and healing. Being victimized by authority figures in our lives can have the extreme effect of mistrust for all authority figures, even mistrust for society as a whole, and plant the seeds for antisocial thinking and criminal behavior. People are indeed responsible for their actions, responsible for their victimization of others, even though they themselves are victims. That being true, there still remains among incarcerated Muslims the reoccurring theme of victimization by those trusted with our well-being, which can be connected to our eventual imprisonment. Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam was unjustly sent to prison, but feel a connection to him in that Allah's servant was a prisoner, a victim, and Allah saved him. Inshallah, he will save us too. Through the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, Allah guides us to what we are our priorities while we are incarcerated. In ayah 37 and 38, Yusuf declares that he has abandoned the ways of disbelieving peoples and follows the way of Ibrahim alayhi salam, the Prophet Abraham, which is the essence of common human values. The guidance here is that while we are incarcerated, the task is self-improvement. To change the harmful ways we think and act for the ideals that are beneficial to ourselves, to others in society. The apex of this endeavor is to leave kufr and enter into a state of iman. To leave disbelief and enter into a state of belief. The second priority while incarcerated is to call others to Islam. In ayah 39 and 40, Prophet Yusuf calls his companions in the prison to the worship of Allah alone. As incarcerated Muslims, we call to the Islam with our good character and sound knowledge. By the will of Allah, the majority of Muslims in prison have accepted Islam during their incarceration. Like Yusuf alayhi salam, we make a compelling case that Islam is a legitimate path for redemption. To all my brothers who have been incarcerated and Allah has blessed to get out, don't be like the one who forgot his companion in prison after his release. This is in the Quran for a reason. I am of the opinion that Yusuf accepted the decree of Allah about his time. It was the one who was released being tested as to his duty to help Prophet Yusuf by the will of Allah. Ikhwan, never forget Allah, your brother, never forget Yusuf alayhi salam. Assalamu alaikum. When we come in here and we talk and we have these discussions, we cannot come here without solutions and without trying to empower our people to become involved in what we're doing here. And so for all of you who are here, whether you're a young person or an old person, whether you're a woman or whether you're a man, I'm here to ask all of you guys to get involved in this movement of reaching out to the brothers who are incarcerated, of giving them a voice, of letting them know that they are not abandoned, that they are not left behind, and that they have a place in this community when they return. Many of my comrades are never getting out unless they come out wrapped up in their coffin. But the majority of Muslims in prison, 95% of them will be released. And they're coming to our communities. And we have to embrace them and we have to let them know that they have a space with us. I cannot do this work I'm doing alone. I need everybody to get involved in what I'm doing. The work that we do is very vital. We're going into the prisons. 28 days after I was released, after doing a 20-year bid, I was back in the prison system. Because like the brother said, that was my test. I cannot forget these people who loved me until I loved myself and was able to get out. Because at 17 years old when I went in, I couldn't see 20 years. And I was ready to go to death row. I was ready to give it all up. Because I couldn't see. And these brothers, they loved me and they protected me from my own self. Until I was capable of functioning like a normal human being instead of an animal. Homicidal. completely uncontrolled. And now we're out here and we're leading the community. We're not behind the community, we're in the front. And these brothers who are being released, they're not behind the community, they're in the front. And this place is full of them. And we have to cooperate, we have to help each other on the missions that we have. Before I leave here, I want to get people signed up. People who are ready to report for duty. I don't care if you're a child or you're a female or whatever your situation is, whether you've been in prison or never been in prison. I'm here to empower you and to let you know that your service and your sacrifice is needed. We can't do this work alone. We need everybody to sign up and get involved. We need to be knocking the doors down at the prisons. We need to have them turning us away because we're coming in busloads and they don't have the capacity in the visiting room. And not just in some self-righteous sense of benevolence, but to learn the experiences of these people who are in the trenches. And I'm not a person who is outside of this experience. I'm a person who is in the trenches, and I'm calling you to join me in the trenches. I'm going to help you get your hands dirty. To come in and to give your brother some sadaqah, the sadaqah of your time and your compassion and your empathy. Like Hanan was speaking about earlier, we need these things for these brothers in order to love them and give them what they need to heal themselves from the trauma that has brought them to where they are. So that when they come home, they can be in the front and not the back. So that they can come out of prison and not ask everybody in the community what they can do for them, but tell the community, I'm here to report for duty. What can I do to help you? Instead of asking the community, give me some sadaqah. These brothers are lining up from the gate talking about, here is some sadaqah. Have some charity. Let me help you. Because we see from inside what you don't see from out here. Because out here we're distracted. We're blinded by our responsibilities to feed our families. We're blinded by being caught up in the lights. But when people are segregated and they're isolated, they have solitude and they can see what we don't see. We're playing chess. They're watching us play chess. And they can see all the mismoves that we're making. Don't get it twisted. These brothers spend their entire existence, 16, 17, 24 hours a day, eating and breathing, La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah. This is all they know. And this is the only source of sustenance that they have because their stomachs are touching their backs. They don't got no money to call their mother. They don't got no money to put no food in their mouth. There's brothers in there fasting because they're starving to death. And all they eat is ilm. And all they care about is, I know brothers right now who would give their right arm to be here right now, to be involved, not necessarily to be on this stage, but to be here to clean up when everybody else goes. To have the opportunity to serve. And everybody here has the opportunity to be of service. And this is what will save us from these streets. If we fill these seats with servants, and we empower our youth to get involved, they will believe in themselves, and they will not feel worthless, and they will not feel like there's nowhere for them to go. If we provide them with the economic capability to empower themselves and lift themselves from poverty, they won't be tempted to the streets like we were growing up in these streets. Instead of standing at 2nd and Prefontaine selling crack like we did, they'll be with us with the yellow shirts on, feeding the homeless people and picking up the trash. There's not enough of us. The work that we have ahead of us is monumental. And so don't think for a second that you don't count, that you're not qualified. Because if you're in this room, I'm telling you, you're qualified. Sign up and let's go. And if you don't know how, I'll show you. And we can learn together. That's my message. I'm here to talk about the solution. And the solution, I'm telling you, wallahi, is service. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. We say this. But how many people really mean it and understand? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we have not created men nor jinn except to worship me. Allah has not created us except to worship Him. We are ibad Allah. And we have to يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا. وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. We have to repel evil with that which is better. And Allah, He characterizes us here as people who walk on the earth lightly, servants of Ar-Rahman. And when the ignorant people, when they insult us, and they insult us on a daily, like the sister, the dragon that was up here, passionate, talking about the oppression, what do? We have to idfa'u billati hiya ahsan. We have to repel that with that which is better, and we have to say salam. And we have to do that which is better. Because we can sit and cry about it all day long. Crying about it is not bringing that brother back that we just did janazah for. Crying about it's not going to stop his brother from getting shot or my son from getting shot in the streets. Not going to stop that. This right here is going to stop that. It's us coming together with ta'awun and tanasub. And so I tell you people, I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I don't really want to sit up here for too much longer. There's other people who want to come up here. Don't leave here. If you're not engaged right, and if you're engaged right now, don't leave here without coming and seeing me and signing up and getting involved. Because we are doing so many things. And the sister Jamila, who goes into the prison system, she is connected. Talk to the sister Jamila. If you're a Muslim and you don't feel comfortable talking to me, talk to sister Jamila and we'll get you plugged in. And we will send you into the prisons. And they will pay you to go into the prisons. To make sure that the Muslims can pray Salatul Jama'ah.
Come on.
Ala Yawm al-Jumu'ah. Because these brothers can't even pray in Salah, man. Because there's nobody showing up. I can't tell you how many times I stood at the door. Me and Asante, all of us who've been in there, know what it's like to be suited and booted, ready to go to pray to Allah. And they say, your Jumu'ah has been canceled because nobody's showing up for you.
Crazy. And
And it happens all the time. This is a simple thing that we can do. And I can get you plugged in. So that's it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.